Guten Tag, everyone. I'm Yin Yang Dragon, and I welcome you all to my next episode of my Payday 2 Armory. And for today's episode, I'll be covering up the most fearsome weapon in World War II, the Germans' MG-42, also known as the Maschinengewehr 42. Which, of course, was mostly designed in 1942, and it's been, of course, it's a general person machine gun than a light machine gun, because normally you would need to have two people carry it. One carried a tripod, and usually one person carries the ammunition. Usually have a four-man crew when operating with this gun. Yeah, quite a lot of work. Of course, this is the last of the machine gun used by the German Army during World War II, as their previous weapon, the MG-44, mostly got replaced, and here's the weapon I have right here. With the light barrel, you can actually change the MG-42 to a MG-34. Although this one would shoot slower here, but in game it still shoots fast. And of course, this weapon got a huge reputation thanks to its awesome rate of fire, usually at 1200 or 1500 RPM. You can't even hear the individual shots. This thing, it sounds like a ripping cloth, and they even nicknamed it Hitler's Buzzsaw because of this thing. Funny enough, even the Americans, and I guess a few allies, or mostly the Americans, made a training video on how to deal with the MG-42. And you know what's funny? Or what's really scared? When you actually hear this thing firing, people will hit the ground fast, even if the weapon was not aiming at them, because that rate of fire will echo throughout the war. And definitely had a huge, nasty reputation for D-Day. After all, this is the weapon that is responsible for many lives has been lost in the Omaha beaches of Normandy, of American, British, and Canadian soldiers. Many lives have been lost on D-Day thanks to this weapon right here. But that fearsome weapon may be not used anymore, but its legacy will live on. Especially with the MG-3, which is a more modern version of the MG-42, except it fires the NATO standard 7.62 by 51mm round, and its design, overall look, alongside with the FG-42, or the Fallschirm Jägergewehr, well, kind of carried over to other weapons, and where the Americans even copy it. Basically their M60, for example, which borrows from the MG-42 design. So let's actually look at this fearsome weapon of the Second World War. So first let me look at the stats of the weapon. It has a magazine of 150, total ammo of 450, which is the largest magazine or total ammo capacity of all the LMGs in its class. Rate of fire is the highest too, at 1200 RPM. Damage of 80, accuracy of 48, stability of 28, concealment of 1, threat of 31, and a reload time of 6.5 seconds. And now we get into the beast, the German war machine. Now, by the looks of it, I really like the model of the weapon. It is so iconic. You have basically of course, the heat sink steel with all these holes that helps protect from the weapon from overheating. After all, this is a air-cooled barrel machine gun, rather than water-cooled machine gun. And of course, the front we have the recognizable muzzle And then we have the, of course, a barrel. And then we have our very small magazine. Usually these magazines were supposed to hold 50 rounds, which somehow holds 150 rounds, which is weird, but who knows. And of course, after you look closer, we have, when we look at the pistol grip with the trigger, of course we have a safety, which we have a button to push either for fire or safe. And then we have some ratings on here. We have where it's mostly were designed or produced, 1943, and it says the MG-42. Of course, has 188 and it says AR. And of course, we have our very famous wooden stock. And the way they shape it a bit too, especially the top, where you can actually, when you're prone with this weapon, you have your left hand way on top of the stock as you fire the weapon. And of course, there's this little piece here at the bottom, which I have no clue what this does. This could probably remove the stock or so, but it looks like it welded pretty together too. And of course, if we check the right side, we have our large charging handle, which it does fold and rotates. And of course, we can see our large full-size rifle cartridge, which is the 7.92 by 57mm Mauser round, which is basically the Germans' full-size rifle cartridge before they lost the war, and it's not been used anymore. But of course, now people use these as nice little relics or hunting weapons, mainly the Kar-98K as a hunting rifle. And of course, we can see our barrel has been exposed to the right side. And of course, there's this little latch here. You can actually open it with this latch right here. This will allow you to replace the barrel. And the reason for it is, since the weapon shoots so fast, it gets overheat very quickly. And the more average time for a German soldier to replace the barrel and fire it again is an average of 6 seconds. And that 6 seconds is enough window time for the Allies to fire back on enemy positions. And of course, we have the iron sights, which are much more just for a heavy machine gun general purpose. It still has one of the best iron sights. Too bad I can't really see it here, and too bad we can't see it in game because you can't really aim with the iron sights, but it's just really clever. Of course, you have a range adjusters too, which looks like the textures are not really read out and very blurry. And of course, there's this little like a bent piece at the top. That's where you can actually open the hatch for this thing, and of course load up a new round. And funny enough, the Payday gang have somehow built up a tolerance of heaviness to lift heavy stuff. I mean, they can able to lift off a heavy artifact in Shadow Raid, so might as well they can lift up a large GPMG or general purpose machine gun. Yeah, there's no records of anyone able to weld this thing in hand and can fire full auto while still trying to control the recoil. I mean, if you try to do that, you're probably going to break your wrist. You're just going to drop the gun immediately. It is such heaviness of this weapon. And despite as much as a lot of people did not like about the Germans World War II, what they did, they were definitely, their technology were ahead of its time. And despite they had the most deadliest weapon in the world, I still have fond respects for these weapons. And I really admire these majestic firearms. And after all, German engineering is a beautiful thing. Alright, now let's actually look at the attachments I have. I also have 3 different variants of it too. Of course, I have the MG-44, and funny enough, when you have the suppressed barrel of this weapon, it basically transformed to a weapon like a weapon from Star Wars, like a blaster, like a heavy blaster. And this looks pretty awesome. Yeah, you may notice when it comes to the suppressor attachments, or at least a lot of weapons attachment with the World War II weapons, a lot of them are basically resemblance as Star Wars. And this is definitely the weapon that would used by Chewbacca or Chewie, and he would definitely use this thing. And I don't know what else is that appear in other games or media, but definitely the way it looks. Okay, now we're on to the attachments that this bad boy has. Despite for being a World War II weapon, it can still fit with modern stuff, which is insane. Although, I think only the barrels are the only unique attachments to it. So you have the light barrel, which transformed to an MG-44, and the heat-sinked suppressed barrel will give you the barrels like this. You lose accuracy, but gain stability, and you lose threat. Funny enough, you don't lose concealment with this. With the MG-44, you don't even lose concealment with this either. Although you just lose 1 damage, but I think that trade-off is worth it. But I do like the look of this, but that's just basically my opinion, and basically your decision if you want to equip the MG-42 or use it the way you like. We have different barrel extensions, which, funny enough, you can actually fit a suppressed barrel. Like, look at that. That basically covers up the muzzle. There's no way you can able to fit with the muzzle here. And also, a weird thing about it, if you try to fit a compensator, my god, like, look at this. Look how... I wish there was much zooming in, but... And then, I think with this, it just looks so weird. So weird with this. I think it looks even ridiculous with the light barrel. Yeah, it looks a little bit weird, but that's a possibility. And of course has a line bipod, which it does have its own bipod, its own unique bipod, which I wish they would have used it, but I'm pretty sure it would take a lot of editing, a lot of animation, and it would be a little bit of a budget. But they used to have it, the model of the weapon of the bipod will have it. So let me show you an example. If you look at the weapon icon here, you can see it has its old bipod. But of course, when you preview it, or adding attachments to it, the bipod is completely gone, and it got replaced by this bipod, which looks a little bit out of place. But that's... it's a thing now. And of course you can pick any boost you want, and any gadget. And the gadget, funny enough, would actually be mounted on the right side, and honestly, and they put the gadget right on the barrel, which, not a good idea. Of course, the barrel does get overheat, and having that gadget there would just be kind of pointless. If anything, it would be much better if it was on the right side, or perhaps even better on top, so it doesn't get cleared away in the barrel. And when I try to put, or if you have the lightweight barrel, which looks a little different, it might make sense. Though it does look weird to see a modern gadget on a machine gun, so especially for a weapon from a World War II era. And now it's time for my fully decked out MG-42. And by the looks of it, yep, this looks really weird. It's essentially an MG-44, which able to shoot like an MG-42 and have all this modern gadgets, all these modern attachments right on the front of the barrel, with the muzzle, the underbarrel with the bipod, and the side with the gadget. And the cool thing about the MG-44, it does have its iron sights too, so it's kind of cool, though kind of useless since you can't really aim with it. And also to know with the MG-44's iron sights is also a range adjuster, so you can actually adjust the range that you want to fire the MG by lifting it either up or down to match up with the front post sight, which is kind of cool. Okay, that's definitely a big history with the gun. And, well, definitely a nasty reputation of this weapon. And now, let's recreate this history at the firing range. See you in a bit. We are at the firing range with the monster MG-42, and you can definitely tell there's just no way for me I could able to hold this. You could probably barely see my hand. You can actually see just a bit of my blue glove just between the mag and just the body of the weapon right there. So this is definitely a beast, and when I try to aim, I just can't use the iron sights, which sucks. Which I really think that should be a quality of life improvement. After all, it doesn't really change much with the weapon stats anyway. Although I would love to put on a sight on these weapons, especially on the RPK with the scope mount. It will be awesome. But we're not talking about the RPK. We're talking about the MG-42. So let's get this thing loaded up. Ooh, sounds so crisp. If I could tell you, it's gonna sound ridiculous. It's the rate of fire. Alright, here we go. It's gonna be a wild ride. Yep. Just like what I thought. It just loves to go over the place. Even burst fire, it still want to go over a few places, and of course, I ran up all the way up here. Alright, so here we go, test 2. Oh, there's gonna be probably my favorite thing about this weapon. It's just a rate of fire when you keep hearing it. Alright, here we go, test 2 about controlling the recoil, and I have to say, my hands would have get numb by now if I would have tried to hold this thing for continuous fire. Don't try this at home, guys. Okay, definitely insane. You can see where the bullets go, and then all the way up there to the horizontal, and all the way to the right, and then hits all the way over there, hits that wall. It's definitely insane. I might need some more ammunition too, because this thing eats a lot. So let's see. Okay, good, I don't need to fully load it, but just making sure. Okay, now I'm not going to try to do test 3. I'm not going to aim it at that wall here, because I'm just going to aim it in the center, because this thing is a beast. So let's see how well I can try to control this. Control this monster of an appetite. Alright, going loud. Rapid fire this time. that wasn't too bad. Of course, I went up a little bit, then I tried to control the recoil as down, and then, of course, the gun likes to go bobbling from left to right as I control it as well. So, despite having some heavy recoil, I find it to be much more controllable than the Akimbos, believe it or not. Which is pretty crazy. Alright, time to show off with the MG-44. I'll whip it back out in a second. Alright, here's the MG-44, and despite the RSA looks a little more different, which almost look like they perfectly line up together. I don't know if it's gonna be in the center, which doesn't look like is gonna be where I'm gonna be aiming at, but bear in mind even though this is the barrel of an MG-44, it still has the rate of fire of the MG-42. Which kind of sucks because I really like to see the rate of fire being toned down a bit when you use this barrel. But I really hope Overkill can actually add some uniqueness to a lot of these attachments that plays differently compared to the base version of the guns. I mean, Modern Warfare kind of did this already. Alright, here it goes. Also to note, you may see the little bit bullets between the mag and the gun, like the yellow stuff. They don't actually move to the right into the feeding system. Okay, I also noticed that the bullets will disappear for a slight second after more continuous shots to come around. Now, I'm not going to continue with all these tests with these guns, these are just essentially one attachment differences, but I just want to show off with the MG-44. And basically just kind of remain the same. So I'll show you what the suppressed barrel looks like. See you in a sec. And here's the, well, suppressed barrel MG-42. I was about to say 44 because I noticed the barrel is an MG-44, just put all these wires or hoses on the gun and suppress in a suppressor, which looks kinda, I don't know, looks like a texture bug than anything else, but that's probably just the gun itself. Alright, let's see how this thing looks, sounds in game. Okay, holy shit, that I barely never use this attachment, and I notice quite a lot of things. Don't mind for me that I'm controlling the recoil. It's just when you fire this thing, it's still loud. You can still hear the echoing of the MG-42 firing. And also, since this suppressor completely removes the muzzle flash. So it makes acquiring targets at long range a lot better and a lot more effectively, because with a muzzle flash can obstruct your view and you can't see your target. But with this, there really isn't. I mean, most of the time when I did fire the weapon with the muzzle flash, you see it doesn't. You can still see a little bit of flash coming out, but I don't know if that's a visual glitch or anything like that, but okay, that's actually quite different. Yeah, you can see like a flash for a few seconds. It is insane. So, Alright, now it's time to bring out my, well, the final MG-42. And it's my fully decked out. And we can see how well does it do on a bipod. I'll see you in a second. Here we are with my fully decked out MG-42. Of course, with the light barrel, lines bipod, LED combo, compares compensator, an accuracy boost, and that's basically about it. And I'm just doing a few. I'm skipping the first test here. I'm just doing the second test. Let's see how it does well when I'm not controlling the recoil. All right, going hot. Okay, even though it did reach all the way on that wall compared to the base version, it does take quite a while to get there. When I hit here, it just starts to stay there for a second and then move around a bit for another second, and then it just keeps repeating until you're out of ammo or you let go of the trigger. And now I'm going to try doing this again for test 3, but this time I'll try to control the recoil in place. Alright. Time for some 1200 rounds a minute action. Okay, I just trying to check if there's any bullet that I hit the brick wall on the right side, but so far I was able to keep all my bullets right on the door with no problem. Definitely had some horizontal recoil, and then of course a little bit of vertical. Alright, here we go. Now I'm just gonna move back a little bit, and I figured this would be a good position for the bipod. Right here, and of course this is where my hand would be, but I would actually have it on my on the stock where I could use my palm, or at least the back of my hand, like a cheekwa. That way I can rest my cheek when I'm aiming at the gun. So here we go. I'm gonna fire this thing, and I'll fire it a little bit in burst, and then I'll fire the thing in full auto. Alright, going hot. Well then, we can see the grouping is much more tighter than compared to trying to fire this thing freely. Okay, so I'm gonna do one more here and just test it out to see. I'll fire a couple bursts, so not all the bullets will appear on the door. So we'll see how well it goes. I'll just fire bursts and see how many I can get in before it disappears. Okay, that's like a much tighter grouping. We can see there's like 5 dents, which I know there should be a lot more, but that is a tight grouping for a bipod. Okay, then now let's actually get us to the long range. So you can be able to snipe pretty well with an MG with a bipod, useful to take out snipers or other enemies at a distance. So let's see how well it does at this range. Okay, we can see the grouping is much bigger compared to what I have in close. So this is a really good example of how effective you're going to use with the bipod at long range. Now normally a lot of people don't really use much of the bipod because you are very stationary and the enemies will kill you, will run and charge at you fast. But I do have to say, I'll probably will have a build when it comes to use the LMG with the bipod. Although I don't think it will be like a DSOD build because I don't think it would fit perfectly. So I'm just going to create a nice little fun build and maybe I'll create like another WTF build with this, where I can only get kills while I'm mounting on the bipod. I don't know, that might be like a later, something like in the near future or something, but I definitely have no plans for it. But yeah, that's it for the MG-42 in terms of firing. Now I'll show you and give you my overall humble opinion on this beast of a GPMG. See you in a sec. Overall, the MG-42, it is such of a beast of an LMG. I'm actually quite surprised they add a couple World War II weapons in a DLC for a game that's set in a more modern times, or in a modern setting. But after all, this weapon did still been used today in a form of the MG3, like I mentioned. And in terms of the overall stats, it definitely has the best time to kill in the LMG class. It maybe even compete with the 120 damage LMGs, like the RPK, the HK-21, and I think this definitely blows the M60 out of the water due to the weapon being a slower rate of fire, while the MG-42 is basically double the rate of fire of the M60. And after all, this is where the M60 borrows the design of the MG-42, just chop the rate of fire in half, basically. It is a powerful weapon, and funny enough, with certain attachments, I could make it more accurate than the M249 saw. Now, I do like use between the two of these, but if I had to pick for weapon for... It's a big comparison between the M249 saw, which is the other more popular LMG. And you can see, for example, it has a much larger magazine, almost a little bit of total ammo, and definitely have a much more 300 less rate of fire. But overall, the damage, accuracy, and stability consumed in threat is the same, except the reload time is much more quicker. So you have a much larger round, but the MG-42 does have the advantage of having a lot more total ammo, thanks to 450, and when fully loaded is 113. So it is definitely a beast of an LMG. And in terms of worth it to get in the Gauge Historical Pack, it's definitely worth it for the MG-42. It is such a fun gun to use, and I love to mow everything down at ranges. It's good for melting dozers, melt for cloakers, tasers, medics. You just had to be wary of the recoil and learn to burst control for medium ranges or long ranges, especially if you're trying to snipe a sniper with an LMG. So the downside would be, of course, a long reload time, and overall not really much attachment going around compared to the M249, considering that's a modern LMG, while the MG-42 is a GPMG, which doesn't have much attachments. But it is a beast of an LMG. I mean, I probably would mark it even part of my top 10 list of my weapons. And thank you for watching, everyone. Until next time, farewell, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Auf Wiedersehen.